Israel is on track to lift all social distancing restrictions in the coming months, thanks to a world-leading rollout of COVID-19 vaccines. Officials have distributed injections made by Moderna and Pfizer BioNTech, which is proving to be as good as the trials have promised. But as Paolo Montecillo reports, the government's been happy to ignore a large part of the population.
In the global coronavirus shot in the arms race, Israel is well ahead of everyone else. Around half of the nation's 9 million people have already gotten their first dose. A third of the population has received the second.
Our intention is to finish vaccinating the adult population over the age of 16. Our intention is to achieve a full opening in April. Obviously, this depends on the level of illness. But if we do all that we should, we can get through this.
Israel has been using a 2-dose vaccine developed by Pfizer and BioNTech, and it's proving to be an excellent choice. Official numbers show that among people given both doses of the drug, symptomatic cases fell 94%.
We expected that in the real-world setting, where cold chain is not maintained perfectly and the population is older and sicker, you will not get as good results as you got in the controlled setting of the clinical trials. But we did. The vaccine worked as well in the real world like it did in the clinical trial.
That's paving the way for the gradual reopening of the economy. The government has started handing out what it calls a green pass for people who've gotten their 2 shots. With that document in hand, people are being allowed back into gyms, swimming pools, and even concerts like this.
So after a year with staying at home in a sort of isolated environment, it feels great to go out and experience in public shows, activities. We like it very much.
Despite the success, groups like Doctors Without Borders have criticized Israel. That's because Palestinians have been mostly left out of its vaccine rollout. So while Israelis are well on track to achieving herd immunity, the people in its occupied territories remain vulnerable to all the effects of COVID-19. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, for more, let's go to Middle East analyst Meir Javedanfar, who joins us from Tel Aviv. Welcome to the program, Meir. Firstly, could you please describe for us what is the situation in Tel Aviv right now? To what extent is life back to normal? And what part did the vaccine rollout play in getting Tel Aviv to this point?
Well, Oscar, it's good to be with you. We're starting to crawl our way out of the current situation, and I emphasize crawl. It's a very slow exit. We see people, we're right now in the middle of the Purim celebrations, and we can go out, but at night there's quarantine. And what's very important is that there's a real drop in the number of people who are becoming sick. A month ago, it was something like 8,000 people every day were being infected. Right now, according to the latest figures, that number is something like 4,000. And part of the reason, there are a number of reasons why it's been so successful here. One of them is that we have a very efficient HMO system, health system, which is basically government, but the government has sliced it off to 4 different organizations, and they all have to compete for government funding. And the way they compete is through the services they offer. So the better the services, the more funding they get. And this has proven to be one of the key success factors. Other is information, informing the public about the importance of the vaccination. And of course, let's not forget we have an election here. And it helps that Mr. Netanyahu is hoping to win by having Israel vaccinated by the time we all go to the polls.
That's right. I was going to ask you about those upcoming elections later, but since you raised it, Israel, as you say, will hold its 4th election in 2 years on the 23rd of March. To what extent will Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu use the success of the vaccine rollout to his political advantage?
He will use it a lot. This is going to be I think the key message, one of the key messages for his election campaign. And it could work, Oscar. It's been very impressive. I'm a critic of Netanyahu I've never voted for him. I would never vote for him. But this is very, very impressive, the way he managed to basically negotiate with the vaccine companies. He was there first on the line. He convinced them. He brought it to Israel. It was all very well distributed. This is something that could work in his favor. Whether this is going to be the critical success factor, it's not clear yet, because there are other issues in this country with which, you know, there were other problems with, as much as the vaccine drive has been successful, there were some decisions that were initially made that made the infection rates go higher by his government. But it will definitely help him, and I think he will use this vaccination drive as one of the central messages that he will for his election campaign.
As Israel's vaccine campaign inches closer to completion, it's emerged that the government plans to send thousands of unused doses to some of its allies, including Honduras, the Czech Republic, and Guatemala. But my question is, shouldn't the government be looking to help the occupied Palestinian territories first? Not only because it's on Israel's doorstep, but I guess they might have a moral responsibility to help out their neighbors.
Oscar, we should, but you know, on the one hand, yes, I agree with you. I think people in Gaza and people in West Bank deserve these vaccines as much, if not more, than people in Guatemala or Honduras or the Czech Republic. I understand that there is a very strong moral and pragmatic argument that has to that can be made in support of the argument that yes, we should be giving whatever we have to the Palestinians that we're not using. Yes, I agree with that, but also I cannot ignore the fact that we have had a very tortured relationship with the Palestinians. And as much as I want to live next to a Palestinian state, and I support the Palestinians' right to have a state, we've had a very difficult relationship with them. So I think we cannot also ignore that. The hatred for the Jews that are taught in some of the Palestinian schools, and you know, the war that we've been through. So so if it was up to me, I would definitely give whatever we have left, first and foremost, to our Palestinian neighbors, because we live next to each other like tooth and gum. Whatever happens to one will affect the other. But I cannot also ignore the fact that one of the factors that's playing a role in Israel giving some of these vaccines to other countries is because we've had a very tortured relationship with our Palestinian neighbors. For now, we are vaccinating their health staff. Israel is contributing to the COVAX fund to provide vaccines all over the world, including Palestine. But I hope the situation changes and we can give them more vaccines.
Okay, Meir Javedanfar, we will have to leave it there, but thank you so much again for joining us on Money Talks.